Hi! I really wasn't planning on doing any non-gaming related story times or tales from my actual real life anytime soon. Or ever, really. I mean, this is about game consoles, I suppose, so it kind of counts? Maybe? Kind of? Sort of? Either way, with the PlayStation 5 being announced for holiday 2020, and with my footage for the thing I was originally going to upload this week being belligerent, I figure, why the heck not? I'm going to tell y'all the story about how I personally ruined several kids' Christmases when the PlayStation 4 launched. Well, at least according to many, many angry parents, I did. If anything, let this serve as a cautionary tale for both customer service professionals and consumers alike as we get hyped for the new console generation. So, yeah, way back in the post-apocalyptic hellscape of 2013, when the PS4 first launched, I was working a seasonal job at one of the many call centers here in my city. Fun fact, Nebraska is inundated with call centers because we have what is considered by corporate focus groups to be a neutral accent. But this particular one, at the time, had a contract with a now mostly defunct retailer. I'm not gonna name names for a variety of reasons. Anyway, this retailer had a contract with my temporary place of employment to handle customer service calls from all over the United States and Canada. Another fun fact, if you ever do call a customer service number for any big box retailer, there is a 90% chance that whoever you're talking to is not actually employed by that company, but by a third-party call center like mine, and has about as much say as you or I do over the goings-on of said retail corporation. Just something to keep in mind should you call customer service in a tizzy over something. I was in my early 20s at the time, that is to say between the ages of old enough to buy beer and 25. I'd already been out of college for a couple of years at this point and was still struggling to find work in the art world. The more things change, the more they stay the same, I suppose. But I had taken this job answering phones because rent needed to be paid, and I also enjoy having things like internet access and eating food. And besides, I was just a temp hire for the holiday season. It's not like I was going to be doing this for the rest of my life. There's no punchline here. I don't still work at that call center. My seasonal contract was up just before the new year, so I left earlier, and I haven't done phone work since. I actually started, I want to say late October of 2013. It had to have been, because we had 2 weeks of training before we were allowed to take calls, and oh boy, do I remember very vividly the mandatory overtime from November 15th, 2013. Otherwise known as the day the PlayStation 4 launched in North America. I have never in my entire life been yelled at by so many strangers in one day. And it was only the beginning. I'm not exaggerating when I say that this job is the reason why the mere thought of dialing my phone and calling somebody is enough to cause a small panic attack. Even just calling my dad, one of the people who raised me and is responsible for me existing just to say hi and catch up, or calling my fiance, the love of my life, who I see literally every day when one or the other of us isn't home and I need to ask a question about something but don't have time to wait on text messages, both require staring at my phone for a minimum of 5 minutes just to try and hype myself up to press the dial button. All because of the irate parents who would call in to complain about their local retailer location being sold out of the PS4 that little Timmy, who's just been so good, desperately wants for Christmas. Sorry, I was having a bit of a flashback there. Breathe. It's okay now. Karen can't hurt you anymore. We also got a lot of the exact same kinds of calls for Xbox Ones as well, but I personally don't care about the Xbone, and it was the holiday 2020 announcement of the PS5 that made me reflect on these dark days and inspired me to share all of this, so this aside is going to be the only mention of Xbox. Sorry, Microsoft fans, but you did click on a video titled How I Personally Ruined Christmas when the PS4 launched, so that's kind of on you at this point. But yeah, that first 12-hour day was absolutely horrible, and I still have nightmares about it from time to time, but you know what? It only got worse the closer we got to Christmas. Thanksgiving and Black Friday that year were also mandatory work days. Yes, Thanksgiving. That holiday that you're meant to spend with your family, being thankful for what you have, and I had to work that day, and because of this, it was the first time in my life that I wasn't able to celebrate with my own family, and I live a good 3 to 8 hours away from every person I'm related to, so holidays are about the only time I get to see any of them. So, there were some emotions about not getting to do that. Thanksgiving was so dead. There really wasn't any point in forcing the entire line group to give up their holiday. I think in 8 hours, I had a total of 3 calls. But, of course, they were all people inquiring as to whether their local location of the retailer had the new game consoles in stock, and being only 1 week, maybe 2 after launch, the answer was, of course, no, which then prompted the yelling and the insults. Lucky there were so few calls that day because I spent a good 10 minutes after each one crying. Now, I didn't exactly have the scratch for a PlayStation 4 of my own at the time, so I don't know if this was the case for every electronics retailer in the US, but I do know that for the retailer I took calls for, there were very few units actually available. There were more than enough to fulfill pre-orders, but not a lot to go around beyond this. Yet, the retailer had some kind of insanely amazing Black Friday bundaroo for the newly released console all the same. However, due to how few units the retailer actually had as a whole, each individual store only had a small number available for this deal, if any at all. For those of you who live in the US, particularly my comrades who had the great misfortune of having to work retail or customer service on Black Friday, I'm sure you already know how well this went down. For those of you who don't live in the US or have truly been blessed by the gods and have never had to work a Black Friday, there were a lot of pissed off moms who weren't able to take advantage on this deal because of the shortage of units, who called to yell at us, presumably after speaking with the store manager yielded less than satisfactory results. I was guilt-tripped, yelled at, insulted, sworn at, belittled, and even threatened by I don't even know how many people. And there was zero time in between calls for any of us to collect ourselves before moving on to the next round of verbal abuse. Our supervisors actually stopped taking over calls as the sheer volume of Karens demanding to speak with them made it actually impossible to keep up. Not like there was anything they could actually do besides issue the exact same apology as Drunts had already given them profusely, and humoring them was only ratcheting up call times and, by extension, wait times, effectively making the next round of callers even more irate. By December 1st, it had become abundantly clear to anybody with a single shred of sense that if you hadn't pre-ordered a PlayStation 4, you were simply not going to get your hands on one before Christmas. At least not through this retailer, and we were instructed to inform callers as such. And so, every single day between December 1st and 22nd, I fielded a minimum of 10 calls where I was told I was the terrible person who ruined little Billy's Christmas because there were no PlayStation 4s available either at their local location or online. I had zero faith in humanity left, even before enduring a month and some change of constant verbal abuse from complete strangers who felt like they were entitled to the world just for existing. But the final straw that broke the camel's back was when I had some lady tell me, quote, "How dare you ruin Daddy's Christmas! My husband is a very powerful man and he's going to track you down and make sure horrible things happen if my son doesn't get his game station for Christmas!" Yes, she did actually call it a game station. And yes, she did just threaten my life over a game console for her crotch goblin. I was just 1000% done at this point. I had dealt with more than any human should reasonably be expected to, and had nothing left to give. I concluded the call using the same scripted line that we were required to use for every call, reported the incident to my supervisor, who was actually nice enough to let me leave half an hour early for the day after the call had been indexed so that whomever could do whatever they needed to do with it. Sadly, I don't actually know what, if anything, came from that because I didn't go back the next day. There was like a week left on my contract and I just didn't have it in me after that call to finish it out. This was a super unprofessional move on my part. I ain't disputing that. But there does come a point where your own health and safety need to take priority over your job, and this was that point for me. In conclusion, if you want a PlayStation 5 at launch, pre-order one. If you don't, there is a very real possibility that you will not be getting your grubby meat hooks on one until February of 2021. Also, don't blame your lack of foresight on customer service professionals, and certainly do not threaten them. They do not get paid nearly enough to deal with it. Just be chill, and they will do their best to help you. If they can't help you, well, you just need to accept that and at least be polite about it. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, well, I'm not honestly sure I will be doing other real-life-based story times, but I do tell stories about D&D, and I have some other more art-related stuff in the works. If any of that interests you, feel free to subscribe, why don't you? And that's all I've got for you. Later.